interesting. This is kind of unusual that these pilots saw different things, and that is sort of, I guess, adding to the mystery of all this.
Yeah, not even the pilots apparently were really able to identify what they saw. And just to take you back for a sec, on Thursday, the U.S. defense officials sent F-35 fighter jets up to try to figure out what this object was that was flying around near Alaska. Those pilots, we have learned, have given very conflicting accounts of what they actually experienced, with some pilots saying that the object interfered with the plane's sensors, other pilots saying that they didn't really experience that, other pilots saying that when they looked at the object, they could identify no identifiable propulsion system, and they did not know how it was actually staying in the air, cruising at that altitude of about 40,000 feet. So this has all added to the Pentagon's wariness of describing in more detail what this object actually is until they can get more information through the debris that they are recovering right now.
Breaking right now, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he has ordered a U.S. warplane to shoot down an unidentified floating object over northern Canada. In a tweet, the Canadian leader says a U.S. F-22 Raptor successfully fired at the object. Canadian forces will now recover and analyze it. This comes on the heels of a fighter jet shooting down another object over Alaska just yesterday. CBS News' Christian Benavides has the latest.
U.S. officials say President Biden gave the order for an F-22 military fighter jet to shoot down the unknown object flying over Alaska's icy northern coast.
The object shot down over Alaska, Mr. President?
Success.
But as investigators work this weekend to gather more information, the object's origin and purpose remains a mystery.
We do not know who owns it. Whether it's state-owned or corporate-owned or privately owned. We just don't know.
White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the device, described as about the size of a small car, was flying at some 40,000 feet and presented a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flights. Last Saturday, Air Force fighter jets downed the much larger suspected Chinese spy balloon off South Carolina's coast after it crossed the continental United States.
What is concerning is that it was yet another unidentified object violating U.S. sovereignty.
Republican Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy says the Chinese balloon should have been taken down much sooner. In a statement, he says there is very little margin for error. Russian territory is only a few miles away. We are the one state closest to the Korean Peninsula and China. Alaska is truly on the front lines. Christian Benavides, CBS News.
Hi, thanks, Pat, and thanks for doing this. This is for General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials, and if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
There are days that define your story beyond your life, like the day they arrived.
What might be called first contact. The objects measure at least.
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber from Army Intelligence. Pack your bags. You're at the top of everyone's list when it comes to translations.
Priority 1. What do they want? Where are they from? You'll be reporting to me, but you'll be working with him when you're in the show.
That's what they call it, the UFO.
Who's being carted off in the medevac?
Not everyone is wired for what you're about to do.
So what do they look like?
You'll see soon enough.
Every 18 hours, a door opens up. That's where we go in.
It's time. Yeah, that just happened.
What happens now?
They arrive.
They need to see me.
Dr. Banks? Are you
insane?
Now that's a proper introduction.
More objects have landed around the world.
This is one of 12.
I'm never going to be able to speak their words.
Got 2 days. Figure something out.
I am human.
It's their language. We need to make sure that they understand the difference between a weapon and a tool. Language is messy, and sometimes one can be both.
Are you dreaming in their language? It's possible they're prodding us to fight among ourselves.
This is just a way to force us to work together for once.
It's more complicated than that.
How is it more complicated?
Russia just executed one of their own to keep their secret.
Got 21 hours
before they start global war.
So how do we clarify their intentions?
I go back in.
Why does this feel worse?
All of a sudden, everyone was mesmerized for like days. UFOs were everywhere. They said it was in like almost every country. Canada, the US, China, almost everywhere. They're saying there's UFOs. And then they shot a few of them down, they said. Like, I don't believe anything they ever say. And then they said they couldn't find any remains of it after they shot it down. Which, you know, like first of all, it's not real, obviously. But if it was, I don't know if you'd want to be shooting it down necessarily. Wouldn't you want to find out what it was? Try to get close to it or something? But anyway, they said they shot it down and then there was like nothing left of it anywhere. Yeah, for a couple of years it was the COVIDs. Then for a couple of years it was the lethal injections. And it's been like the Russia-Ukraine thing for more than a year now. Now they got them with the UFOs. We've been waiting for Project Bluebeam for like years.
On March 13th, 1997, scores, perhaps hundreds of Arizonans were privy to one of the most dramatic UFO sightings of the modern age. And at least one Phoenix resident also witnessed a strange holographic image in the wake of that massive triangular UFO. But was she the only one who got a glimpse of the truth? At 8:30 Mountain Standard Time, a caller to the National UFO Reporting Center stated that he had seen the giant triangle and what he thought was a red laser beam shoot out of the craft very near to where Christine had seen the hologram.
The fact that there was an incident where a red laser shot into the sky and at the same time a UFO was spotted seems to have more than coincidental relation.
And perhaps the fact that the big saucer of 97 appeared on one of the smoggiest days of the year is no coincidence either.
I mean, we are literally now at the phase where the Financial Times, a mainstream publication, is openly publishing articles with headlines like "Psyops are a crucial weapon in the war against disinformation." PSYOPs, of course, being short for psychological operations, a military term defined as, quote, operations to convey selected information and indicators to audiences to influence their emotions, motives, and objective reasoning, and ultimately the behavior of governments, organizations, groups, and individuals. The purpose of United States psychological operations is to induce or reinforce behavior favorable to U.S. objectives, end quote. Also known as psychological warfare. Just by the way, we don't use that phrase very much anymore, but that's what it is. This is where propaganda, of course, comes just right on in. And as I covered back in 2016, during the Obama administration, they made U.S. government domestic propaganda use against American citizens fully legal. And just to recap, back in 1948, after World War II, we had something known as the Smith-Mundt Act. More officially, the U.S. Information and Educational Exchange Act of 1948. And they were shifting from wartime to peacetime use of propaganda as an instrument of the new post-World War II foreign policy. And the act specified at that time that State Department propaganda operations could only be implemented strictly outside of U.S. borders. In the digital world, there aren't borders, right? But the first restriction on this act was specifically to prohibit domestic propaganda dissemination, with assurances that Congress, academia, and the mainstream media would filter out our government's foreign propaganda from American citizens. Fast forward to the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013, in which the Smith-Mundt Act was officially amended to allow American pro-government propaganda materials produced by the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors to be released inside the United States in the interest of national security.
NASA is hiring priests to prepare humans for contact with aliens. Yeah, the aliens are back. And is this for real? Is anything real anymore? I seriously doubt it. This hasn't really appeared in the main sewer of the toxic media, not really. Here we see it mentioned on Twitter from the Times. It also in some of those subsidiary drains like the Daily Beast. So it says here, NASA is enlisting help of 24 theologians as part of its efforts to determine how different religions around the world would react to contact with aliens, reported Technotrends. A reverend is already working with NASA. And it says here, he is going to raise questions that ask how will discovery of life affect beliefs of religious people across the world. So obviously they are anticipating contact with aliens pretty soon. I believe that's the idea. Why else would you be doing this? That's the concept that they are trying to sell you through these toxic news platforms. That's the seed they want to plant in your heads. But of course, you should be more than skeptical.
Space Telescope. Using the largest deployable telescope ever launched, James Webb Space Telescope will peer deep into space, through cosmic dust and further back in time than ever before, to observe the universe billions of years ago when stars and galaxies were just beginning to form.
got this gut-wrenching feeling that something big is about to happen, there's a reason. And it has everything to do with what is now being disclosed to the general public.
Bombshell UFO report is expected in June from the U.S. government.
Meantime, UFO sightings in New York have nearly doubled since the pandemic began, and we are getting new video from the Navy showing pyramid-shaped objects flying in the sky.
We were warned by the late Wernher von Braun in the years leading up to his death in 1977 that there were going to be a certain number of cards played on humanity, all leading to a culminating event. Now, everything Wernher von Braun warned us about has come true, except for what he called the final card that they were going to play on us, and it has everything to do with UFOs.
The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids.
This new one you're tracking, how big
big. It's what we call a global killer. Nothing would survive, not even bacteria.
An asteroid some scientists call a city killer came closer to Earth than the moon this week. The scary thing is that scientists had no idea it was coming.
Now, at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. The way he said it to me, there was no doubt in my mind that he knew something that he was too afraid to talk about.
Can you tell us, have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Just a few days ago, the Pentagon confirmed that a 2019 video of a UFO sighting is actually real. It was a UFO.
Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the 6th branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
The